Hello, welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong but fun to talk about. I'm Shauna,
I'm Leslie.
and today we are so excited to be coming back at you with another pre-con deep dive. We're really excited about the Murders at Karlov Manor Commander decks that are coming out. So we are going to go through the deck in this video. We're going to go through the deck and give you a breakdown, talk about what this deck is meant to do and how to use it. And then if you wait and hang around with us until the end, we have some tweak ideas that were really fun to find. And yeah, so without further ado, Leslie is going to tell you all about this deck and its commander.
Wonderful. So this deck is one that as we were analyzing it, it was very clear that Shauna would like this deck
Yep.
because she is really good at all of the tricky stuff. This deck is definitely going to be all about playing things face down. If there's a card, and we'll explain all that as we go, but if there's a card that you can play face down, you should play it face down, but you will have to kind of keep track of what all of those cards do when they're turned up, play them at the right time. So it is kind of thoughtful and tricky. So if you're very new to Magic, this might not be the deck for you, but who knows? You might like strategic
Yeah.
games, and if that's the case, then go for it. You're going to want to get your commander out early and then go for it. So our commander is Cost, Eyes of the Glade. He's a 2/2 for 2. But whenever a creature you control is turned face up, um, deals combat damage to a player, then draw a card. So you're going to want to turn them face up during combat so that you get damage in with your cards that are turned face up this turn to get you some extra card draw. The fun thing about him is that he kind of gets past the cost of Megamorph and Morph and even the disguise cost because he allows you to turn things face up for free, which is going to be why you want him on the battlefield and you're going to want to protect him. If he's not your style, there is a secondary commander in this deck that you could use. Really good for this deck, regardless, as just a creature. But if you want to switch it up, we have Duskana, the Rage Mother. She's a 5/5 for 5 with all 3 colors. And when she enters the battlefield, you draw a card for each creature you control with a base power and toughness of 2/2, which will be all your face down cards. And whenever a creature you control with a base power of 2 attacks, it gets +3/+3 until the end of the turn. So now all of your little 2/2s are 3/3s.
Yeah.
And if you do want to build a different deck around it, the whole term, if you're new to Magic, bear, you'll hear the word bear a lot because all the bears in Magic that are creature type bears are 2/2s for 2. And so that's where the term bear comes from. Whenever you hear someone call a 2/2 for 2 a bear, it's that. And I will point out that your commander cost is a 2/2 for 2. So he's a bear in and of himself.
Uh,
But what about the guts of this deck? What about our mana curve and stuff like that? What does that look like, Shauna?
Yeah, so this deck is actually pretty aggressive. It's got pretty low cost in general, but it does have quite a few at the high end as well because of that morphing and mega morphing and stuff like that. So we've got 5 cards at 1, and 16 at 2, 7 at 3, 17 at 4, and then at 5 and 6 there are 9 each, so 18 total up there. So it's a little on the high end, but like I said, it's because of those high cost morphing time, but you're going to use your commander to make those costs cheaper.
Free, hopefully.
Yeah. And then the color breakdown for this deck, there's 4 multicolor and 7 colorless. Those are your artifacts and stuff. 13 white, lots of green because green is big stompy stuff. So 29 of those, and 10 red. And then as far as types go, there are 37 creatures because you want all that morph and I shouldn't call it morph, disguise and
Yeah, morph and megamorph and
they're
disguise
in
are
there.
all creature
Disguise, they're
things.
in
So
there.
yeah.
Yeah. So you want that stuff. And then you got 12 sorceries, 7 enchantments, 6 artifacts in this
Yeah.
deck. So Leslie's going to tell you a little bit about the deck building formula
Yeah.
that we use to evaluate these decks.
Exactly. So we use a little formula of what we feel should be in a well-rounded starter commander deck. Of course, this definitely changes depending on how powerful your deck becomes, but this will get you a good, well-rounded deck, and all of the precons tend to follow this type of formula. So for ramp, we think you should have around 15 cards, removal 15, card draw 13, high impact cards, you want to have about 12. Those are ones that are going to win you the game. Your other cards are your support or other win cons. They're ones that are going to make your high impact cards work well for you or your commander work well for you. And then we recommend between 34 and 35 lands. Any of these can fluctuate up and down 3 or 4, and it would be just fine. So these decks definitely, I think, follow this formula quite closely. Our first section we're going to talk about is all the ramp cards in this deck. So,
Mhm.
Shauna, what does our formula say about it?
Formula says 15. This deck has 12, so that's pretty good there. We've got Scroll of Fate, which is a little artifact for 3 that you can manifest a card from your hand. So basically, you can pay 2 to is it 2? Oh,
Yeah.
I always forget. Yeah, pay
No,
2 to put
you just tap it
just
and
put
you
it
put
down.
that card. Yeah. Doesn't
Right.
cost
Just
anything.
doesn't cost anything. So you tap this thing and put that card face down on the battlefield, ready to go.
Yeah. It's so interesting. So this deck has Cloak, Disguise, Morph, Megamorph, and Manifest.
Manifest. Yeah.
All put cards face down on on your thing. When
Mm-hmm.
they're face down, they're always 2/2s. So that's all you need to remember about
Yeah.
that. How you turn them face up or how they get to the face down is what's different in all of those. So
Yeah.
anyways, Arcane Signet and Soul Ring are also in this deck, as they are in most Commander deck precons. So a good way to get them. Arcane Signet, any color, and Soul Ring you can add too. So
Mm-hmm. Panoptic Projector, which looks like a pretty cool card. It is artifact for 4, and you can tap it, and the next face down creature spell you cast this turn costs 3 less to cast. And if turning a face down permanent face up causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time.
mm-hmm. So there's
So,
lots of cards in this deck that have like when a card is turned face up, like your commander, this happens. That's considered a trigger. So then
mhm.
that would happen twice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Trail of Mystery for 2 is an enchantment. Whenever a face down creature card enters the battlefield under your control, you can search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. Some nice looking for some land. And whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, if it's a creature card, it gets +2/+2 till the end of turn. So there's a little added bonus on that card.
Nice. A wild growth is an aura that you put on a land, and it says whenever this enchanted land is tapped for a mana, its controller adds an additional green. So that's going to bump up, get double mana on that card.
Mm-hmm. And then another enchantment, Obscuring Aether, only costs 1 to get down, and face down
Mm-hmm.
creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So just to clarify, that's not the cost to put them face down. It's when they're face down and there's a cost to put them face up, they would cost less.
And Nature's Lore is a sorcery. Search your library for a forest card, put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
Handy dandy.
3 visits, search your library for a forest card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Pretty basic.
Yeah, it's Jessica's Will for 3 sorcery. Choose one if you control a commander. As you cast this spell, you may choose both. Add red for each card in target opponent's hand. That's really handy. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of tutoring and drawing as well as
Yeah.
mana in that one. Secure a Tribal Elder. You can search your library for a basic land card and put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So when you sacrifice it. So this is one that you'd put on the battlefield and you would sacrifice it when you need to go search. Our recommendation is to wait until you block with it. So he's a nice little blocker. Before damage is done, then you can sacrifice it.
Mm-hmm. Nervous Gardener. This is a new card. It is a 2/2 for 1 and a green. and has disguise 1. So you may cast this card face down for 3 as a 2/2 creature with ward 2. So that's what disguise is. This is our first disguise card. So you cast it for 3, and then you can, to turn it face up, you pay its disguise cost. So that would be the 1 green. When it is turned face up, you search your library for a land card with basic land type, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle.
And some people might think, well, why wouldn't I just play it for 2? And that's because you don't get the ability of when it's turned face up. So that's why it costs a little bit more. You cast it technically for 4 because it's 3 the first turn and then 1 the next turn. But you want to take advantage of all of these when it's turned face up. Our next section is card draw and tutors. Our formula says 13. This deck only has 8, but I will mention here that our commander has that card draw for every time a face down card does combat damage. So that will help with that quite a bit. But the first one here is Life Crafter's Bestiary. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get to scry. It's always good to look at what is in your library coming up. Scry, for those that don't know, you get to look at the top however many cards, in this case 1 card of your library, and you get to decide, do I want that next? Do I need that next? If so, you can leave it on the top. If not, then you can put it on the bottom of your library and it will come up later. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may pay 1, and if you do, you can draw a card. So ongoing.
Yeah. Here's another disguise card, True Identity. It's an enchantment, and whenever it or another permanent you control is turned face up, you scry 1, then draw a card. And it only happens once each turn, but still, that's going to be, hopefully every turn you get an extra card. Its disguise is 1. So basically, like I said, you cast it for 3 as a 2/2 creature, then you can flip it over for 1. Have it happen.
Return of the Wild Speaker is an instant for 5. You can choose 1. You draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control. In some cases, that's a lot. And non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until the end of the turn. So whichever one you need, you can use for that. So if you use the +3/+3, maybe you're using it for removal or getting some extra damage in, but we think it's probably best to use for card draw.
And I love Welcoming Vampire. It's one of my favorite vampires in particular. And it is a 2/3 flyer, which is really nice to have. Plus, whenever 1 or more creatures with power 2 or less, which is going to be a lot in this deck, you're making all these 2/2s, enter the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. And that the only triggers once each turn, but believe me, that happens a lot. You have a lot of cards when you have this card out. They have to get rid of her.
Absolutely. And Beast Whisperer for 4 is a 2/3.
Same.
Whenever you cast a creature spell, you draw a card. That's great.
They have to get rid of it. Den Protector 2/1. This is a little human warrior. Creatures with power less than Den Protector's power can't block it. And here is a Megamorph card. So this one, you may cast this card face down as that 2/2 for 3. And then you get to turn it face up at any time for its Megamorph cost and put a 1/1 counter on it. So you do pay extra to do that, but you've got, all of a sudden, you've got a 3/2. So that's pretty awesome. And when it's turned face up, you return target card from the graveyard to your hand. Rude.
Yeah, tutor from your graveyard. And then Toski, Bearer of Secrets, the nice little squirrel that everyone loves to hate. It's a 4 mana cost 1/1, but it does have indestructible. It can't be countered, so it's hard for them to not let on the battlefield. And he attacks all the time. But whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. So also, you do need to get in for combat damage with all of these. Even with your commander, you'd have to get in for combat damage. So hopefully you're going fast and building up your board quickly.
Alrighty, then we're on to the removal section. So the formula calls for 15. The deck has about 12. But as a very aggressive deck, you're going to be removing creatures because they're going to have to block stuff. So that's going to be removable by itself. The first one is a card I love to hate. It is Chaos Warp for 2 and a red. I hate this card. It's an instant. And I don't know why. I just don't like it. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. So You can do that to save one of your creatures, but usually you're doing it to get rid of something of theirs and hope that they don't bring out something worse.
Yeah. I think you just don't like risk very much. You're like,
Maybe.
oh, I like to know what's happening and when I'm playing a card, and this is like, it could be better.
Oh,
It's gone bad for you a few times.
it has.
Uh, Path to Exile. For 1, you just get to exile target creature. It's an instant, so you can do it when you need to. Its controller does get to search for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tap, but whenever you get rid of something, it's nice to be nice and give them something back.
Sure, now I'm going to sneeze. I'm so sorry, everyone. All right, Unexplained Absence. This is a new card, right, Leslie? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. For 3 and a white, it is a cool little instant that says for each player, exile up to 1 target non-permanent that player controls. For each permanent exiled this way, its controller cloaks the top card of their library. So to cloak, this is their first cloak card, kind of. You put it onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature with ward 2. And then you get to turn it face up anytime for its mana cost if it's a creature card. If it's not a creature card, it has to stay face down as a 2/2 creature. So that's a way to get rid of something of theirs that's really annoying off the top of their deck.
Again, this is like Chaos Warp, right? Like it's risky because you might just put a really good creature down for them to just have. You can think of the face down creatures as like a secondary hand because they're all like could come up at any time.
Good way of doing
So
that.
it could be bad for you, but it also could get rid of some good stuff that they're hoping to play, instant sorceries, stuff like that. Show-stopping surprise for 5. It's an instant. You can choose target creature you control, turn it face up for its face. If it's face down, and then deal damage equal to its power to each other creature. So that one is super crazy. First of all, you're turning it up for its mega morph or morph cost, and there are some biggies that if you can turn them up for 5 instead of 9, that's awesome. And then they're going to potentially do damage to each other creature. Now, that includes yours. It doesn't say each other opponent's creature. So you have to kind of think about whether you want your stuff done. Sometimes you need a board wipe, though.
Yes, and there is a couple ways that you can kind of get stuff back in this deck. Not a ton, but yeah, you've got a little bit of stuff there. And then we have, of course, Austere Command, which is in a lot of commander decks for 4 and 2 white. It is a sorcery that lets you choose 2, destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, or destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with mana value 4 or greater. Again, it's going to affect you as well, but sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures.
Desperate times. Fell the Mighty for 5. You're going to destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power.
Goodbye.
Desperate times.
Yep. Decimate. This one lets you, for 4, destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. So you could be very mean about it. Well, you will be mean with that.
So this one is Dusk to Dawn. This is one of those double-faced cards, or not double-sided, two option cards that you actually can cast both of them. So Dusk is destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater, and that's for 4. And then when this gets put into your graveyard, you're going to put it sideways, and then you'll see the little dawn sticking out of your graveyard. And you have this aftermath cost, which you can cast from your graveyard, and then you're going to exile it, which is return all creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So you're going to do a board wipe, and then you're going to get everything 2 or less back into your hand. This can be risky, but at least you get both, and you can do both of those on the same turn, or you can wait and do Dawn whenever you want. So if you have enough mana and you just kind of want them back to get them out again, you can just do that right away as well. So yeah, good little card.
And we've got the Death Mist Raptor. It's a 3/3 for 1 and 2 green. Death Touch. Whenever permanent you control is turned face up, you may return Death Mist Raptor from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is an example of one of those things you can bring back again, face up or face down. And its Megamorph is for 4 and a green. And that's again, you can turn it face up for its megamorph cost. So
Yeah.
depends what you want to do
And
there.
I think Megamorph is always, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So Megamorph just gets
Mm-hmm.
it one extra power
Counter.
and toughness.
Nice.
So Temur War Shaman for 6, it's a 4/5, and when it enters the battlefield, you get to manifest the top card of your library, which again is just putting it face down onto the battlefield, similar to Cloak, but it doesn't have ward, and you can
Mm-hmm.
turn it up, you can turn it face up at any time. If it's a creature card. So it's the same thing as Cloak, but without ward. And when a permanent you control is turned face up, if it's a creature card, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. So now all of your face down creatures can potentially be removal, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Enoch Survivalist for 2. It has Megamorph 2 as well. When it is turned face up, destroy a target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. I have this in a few decks, actually, that card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nantuko
Vigilante.
Vigilante.
We've been
I
reading a
read
lot
slow,
today.
okay? So 4 is a 3/2. I got there. It has Morph 2. Again, cast it face down, 2/2. Turn it back up for its Morph cost. When it's turned face up, you get to destroy target artifact or enchantment. So same thing as the Survivalist.
It's a scary mutant.
Yeah.
Really scary. Then we're on to our high impact cards. So the formula calls for 12. The deck has 15. We've
It's
got
a
a
good
lot of
deck.
cards in this deck that, anyway, really good stuff. So we've got, first of all, an enchantment called Veil Ascension. This is a new card, I'm pretty sure. When it enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on each face down creature you control.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is why you want to come in face down. So face down creatures you control enter the battlefield with a flying counter on them. So all of them, when they come in, they're going to get a flying counter. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you may cloak the top card of your library. So you're getting an extra card out to do
It's
this
always face
flying counter
down.
thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
And when they're turned face up, because it's a counter, they keep their
yeah,
counter. So they're just going to keep
right.
flying,
Yes.
which is amazing. It's going to do so much work for you.
They're
Same with Ugin's
ascending.
Mastery. Yeah, exactly. Ugin's Mastery is an enchantment for 4. And whenever you cast a colorless creature spell, which is the manifest cards, all the stuff that's face down has no color. You get to manifest the top card of your library, so you get an extra little one there. And whenever you attack with a creature, or with creatures with total power 6 or greater, you may turn a face down creature you control face up. So that's
Including
only
those one of
3
those
little
attacking.
2/2s. You can attack with them, and then you get to turn one of them face up. So for free. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So we're worried about these big costs on these? No, we're not worried
No.
about that. We're going to do it for free.
We're going to do it for free.
Yeah. Whisperwood Elemental. It's a 4/4 for 3 and 2 green. At the beginning of your end step, you get to manifest the top card of your library. And you can sacrifice this until end of turn. Face up non-token creatures you control gain. When this creature dies, manifest the top card of your library. So again, just to get that whole engine going of all the manifesting happening everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And then a Chroma, Angel of Fury. Of course, I love angels because I'm an angel myself.
Yes.
So this one, if you just wanted to cast it, it costs 8, but you're not going to do that. You're going to cast it face down for 3 and then hopefully turn it face up for free. It does have a morph cost of 6, but it can't be countered. It has flying, trample, protection from white and from blue, and it has basically fire breathing, so you can give it +1/+0 until the end of turn with any of the red mana that you have. So, why not?
Very high impact, this card.
Yeah.
Especially that protection piece. Do you want to explain what protection is?
Oh, yes. So protection means it can't be destroyed by, enchanted by, blocked by, or targeted by anything that's white or blue, or whatever it says protection from.
Can't even be remotely blocked by all their white flyers. You can't.
And the way you can remember that is the word debt, DEBT. So D, destroyed, E, enchanted, B, blocked, T, targeted.
Mm-hmm. Imperial Hellkite. This is a dragon. 6/6. Leslie likes her dragons too.
Yep.
For 5 and 2 red, its morph is a little bit more. But when it is turned face up, you may search your library for a dragon card, reveal it, and put it in your hand. If you do, you have to shuffle your library. We didn't check to see how many other dragons there are.
No, I don't think there's a
But
ton, but
yeah, but yeah, you're going to hopefully want to do this one for cheap. Get it out there as a 2/2, and then for cheap, get it or free. Have it
cheap or
morph.
free. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Neheb the Eternal is a 5 for 4/6. It has afflict, which means that if he's blocked, the player still loses 3 life. So they have to make a decision of whether they want to block or not. And then at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, so the second main phase, you get to add 1 red for each life that your opponent lost this turn. So some nice ramp,
Yeah.
but because it has the afflict and the mana cost and the extra mana, we thought it's probably pretty high impact.
Yeah, for sure. Could use that to play your Hellkite.
Yeah. Speaking of
All
other
right.
dragons,
Right. Scourge of the Throne, big boy, 5/5 for
mm-hmm.
4 and 2 red. Is flying and dethroned. So whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for most life, put a 1/1 counter on it. That's mean. You're attacking. Well, I guess you're attacking the player with the most life, so that's all right.
Yeah.
Whenever it attacks for the first time each turn, if it's attacking the player with the most life, you get to untap all attacking creatures. And after this phase, there's an additional combat phase.
That's just
You're mean.
crazy.
You're
That's so mean.
mean.
And but you know what? It kind of goes with what both of us like to do is just like, well, you know what? This person
We're
has the most
attacking.
life, so I'm going to attack
Yeah.
them. So it just helps that.
And then I'm going to do somebody else.
Exactly. Hooded Hydra for X and 2 green. So whenever you see X in a mana cost, that means you choose the number. It enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters, and when it dies, you create a 1/1 green snake creature token for each 1/1 counter on it. It does have morph, which means, again, what morph says, you can put it play it face down for 3 and then turn it up for its morph cost. So as Hooded Hydra is turned face up, you get to put 5 counters on it. So if you decide that you just want to hide it and then turn it face up, it's automatically got 5 counters, or you can pay 7 for it to get 5 counters. So it's a little bit cheaper to pay it into 2 costs, 2 turns.
Yeah. The Oran Frost Fang, it's a 2/6 for 3 and a 2 green. And attacking creatures you control have death touch. Suddenly they're not going to want to block your stuff. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So here it's very high impact, obviously, because they're not going to want to block your stuff. If they do, it's going to die. And you've got that card draw happening. So yeah, this card is a really, really good card.
Yep. And another one similar to that, which I didn't realize was out there. Shauna probably did because it's from Midnight Hunt. Sereth the Viper Fang for 4 is a 3/4. Other tapped creatures you control have Death Touch. Other untapped creatures you control have Hexproof. And so there's benefit for attacking or not attacking. And then you can pay 1 and tap it to untap another target creature or land you control. So you can swing with it. It gets Death Touch. You can untap it, and now it has Hexproof.
Yep.
Lots of work that one's going to do for you.
Pretty awesome. Yeah. Seedborn Muse, it is a 2/4 for 3 and 2 green, and you can untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. So that, paired with the Sereth, is really good.
Yeah. And then, of course, Duskana Rage Mother, we already talked about her. It's going to get you drawing cards and 2/2s and make your 2/2s bigger.
Experiment 12, I love the name of this. It's a 3 and a green, a 4/4 that has trample. And whenever it or another creature you control is turned face up, put a +1 counters on that creature equal to its power. What?
Yeah.
And its disguise is 5. You're going to want to do that disguise regardless, right?
Yeah.
Because, turning it face up, you're turning it into 8/8 all of a sudden.
Yeah.
With trample.
And all of your stuff, when they're turned face up, get double. So just think when we get to that 13/13 that's coming out here.
Yeah.
You'll see Stay
You'll
with
see.
us, people. Stay
Stay
with
with
us.
us.
Okay. Pre-lifter ooze for 2. I love this little guy. First of all, he is adorable.
He
He is
is
an
like
adorable little
silly
ooze. Look at
putty,
his cute little face.
right? Silly
Um,
putty.
yeah, he's a 2/2 for 2. He has death touch, which is awesome. But whenever an ooze or another creature you control is turned face up, which is lots, you get to create a ooze token, a 0/0 ooze token that enters the battlefield with X11 counters on it, where X is the number of other creatures that you control. So you have this really wide board. Hopefully, you turn it face up, it gets that many +1 counters, so that you just keep creating all these oozes. He does have a disguise cost too, so you can decide to play him face down, turn him face up for his disguise cost, which is a little bit more tricky, but he has death touch, so you might want to use him for removal. He has lots of options here, and if you have experiment 12 out, then he would come in with more counters, and so
Woo,
lots of good things can happen.
definitely. Exalted Angel. This is a 4/5 for 6. Flying. When it deals damage, you gain that much life. Really going to be hard for them to block a 4/5 flyer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and its morph cost is 4.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you've got this 4/5 flyer that they won't be able to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yay!
Yeah. All right, and now we're on to our support. This is stuff that kind of helps your commander, helps your high impact cards, and just kind of really supports the deck and fills it out. The formula we like to use calls for 10. We found about 15 in this deck, so there's a lot of support, which is okay when you're playing a deck that's on a very heavy theme. The first one is Mastery of the Unseen for 2. It's an enchantment, and whenever a permanent you control is turned phase up, you gain 1 life for each creature you control, which is crazy. So you're going to hopefully get that life back if you've lost it. And it has play 4 and manifest the top card of your library. So you're going to keep getting things face down and then turn them face up.
Yeah, it's great. Hidden Dragon Slayer, 2/1 for 2 with lifelink and has Megamorph of 3. And when it is turned face up, you get to destroy target creature with power 4 or greater and opponent controls. Suddenly you're going to go kill their
Yeah.
big guy.
Yeah. Master of Pearls for 2. It's a 2/2. It has a morph cost of 5, and when it is turned face up, creatures you control get +2/+2 until the end of turn. Huzzah!
Surprise, surprise. Mirror Entity, a 1/1 changeling. So it's every creature type. So it could be a dragon that you go looking for. Pay X until end of turn. Creatures you control have base power and toughness of X, and gain all creature types. Hot.
Yeah. So Ash Cloud Phoenix, we debated whether we should put this in high impact or whether we should put it in the support. In the end, we left it as support because it's conditional of whether it'll be good or not. So, and it can be very good in some instances. So for 4, you get a 4/1. It has flying. When it dies, you get to return it to the battlefield face down. And then you can flip it over. So it's going to just keep coming back, but it does cost 6 to cast it to morph it back to its normal thing again. Whenever it's turned face up, it does 2 damage to each player, which will be ongoing. But people will know that that is your Phoenix and may decide to kill it. So there are definitely some tricks that people can try and control it. So it's not as powerful in some cases.
Yeah. And same with our big guy here, the Cross and Cloudscaper. It is a 13/13 for 10. It's got the triple green that you need there, which is really tough sometimes. But at the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice it unless you pay 2 green. So in order to keep him alive, you also need to be paying into him all the time. Its morph cost does make him a little cheaper, but only by 1. So he is nice to have out there. He doesn't have trample, but if you've got some other things out there that might help him get that, it's just we were thinking it's going to be really hard to be effective, and he does die to removal and isn't getting through potentially.
He
So
has some conditions to being high impact.
yes,
But when he is high impact,
he
if you think
is.
about some of those other things like adding the number of counters based on its power. So now he's a
Yeah.
26/26 with flying because they all have flying
Yeah.
counters.
Right. Yeah.
So there is definitely potential that this could go off if the right conditions.
Yeah.
Same with Kroos and Colossus. He's a 9/9. His morph cost is 8. You're going to always use the morph cost if you can. He doesn't have any other
Hmm.
text when he turns face up, though. So this is more just you turn him face up and he's a little bit of a trick.
Yeah. And the root elemental, it's a 6/5 for 6 with morph of 7. Um, but when it is turned face up, you may put a creature card from your hand into play. So maybe that's the way you get out your 13/13.
Mm-hmm.
So this depends. Again, that's what we thought it should be. It's a really high, it can be high impact, but not always.
Mm-hmm. And there's ways to turn them face up for free. So that
Mm-hmm.
is hopefully what you're going to do. But
Yeah.
Thelanite Hermit for 4 is a 1/1. All saprolines you control get +1/+1, but it has a morph cost of 5, and when it's turned face up, you get to create 4 green saproline creature tokens. So you're definitely going to want to do that.
Mm. Yeah. Eudora Grave Gardener, it's a 5/5 for 5. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may return to the battlefield face down under its owner's control, and it's a forest land. So we were talking about this, and that doesn't say that there's a way to turn it face up again when those come back. So it would be a 5/5, or sorry, it would be a land. But I don't know where 5/5 came
Mm-hmm.
from. It would be a land, but not a creature that you can turn face up, we think.
Which
So,
could be good, but not.
yeah.
Sidar Kondo of Jamura is a human knight. He has flanking, so that's new again. Lots of
Mhm.
keywords in this one. Whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn. So the likelihood of their creatures having flanking um, is pretty slim, and so anything that blocks it is going to automatically be -1/-1. Creatures your opponents control without flying or reach can't block creatures with power 2 or less. So that again makes it harder for them to block because they have to have flying or reach on them in order for them to block. In Commander, there's lots of flyers out there, so it might be
Mhm.
good, might not be good.
Yeah. Brood Hatch Nantuko. It's a 1/1 for 2. When it is dealt damage, you may create that many 1/1 green insect creature tokens. It has morph of 3. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it could be
Salt
good.
Road Ambusher for 4 is a megamorph of 5, and whenever another permanent you control is turned face up, if it's a creature, you put 2/1/1 counters on it. And pretty much anything that gets turned face up has to be a creature. So,
Yep. It's going to be good. Bolt Bender 4/2 with disguise. This disguise cost is 2, or its regular cost is 4. When it is turned face up, you may choose new targets for any number of other spells and/or abilities. So if they're trying to destroy something of yours, you can bounce it back at them or something like that.
mhm.
Surprise!
Surprise! And a new doggo, which I'm super excited about for my Rin and Siri deck, but that's besides the point. We'll talk about that another time.
Mhm.
Call me. Tessek Judith Hellhound for 4 is a 3/3. It has Unleash. So whenever you have a
Mhm.
creature enter the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it, it can't block as long as it has a 1/1 counter on it. So it's
Oh
just
well.
not a blocker, but other dogs you control have Unleash. Creatures you control with a counter on them have haste, so now they're fast. When they come in and they have counters, they have haste. And whenever Tessek Judith Hellhound attacks, you add 1 mana for each attacking creature. So just a note on that your mana does empty out between phases, so you would have to use that mana during combat. So you're going to use that mana on your instants or sorceries or to turn other
Mm.
things face up.
Yep.
So when
Yep.
she's already face up, she attacks, and then for each attacking creature, you get all this mana that now you can use to turn other things face up, which is great.
Yeah. And it says creatures you control with counters on them have haste. So the flying counters
Yeah.
count
Any
for
kind of,
that as
yeah,
well.
any
It doesn't
counter.
say it has to be a 1/1 counter, which is really, really good.
Yeah. And if
Oh,
you have that one that gives counters when they're turned face up, then they have counters
yeah.
automatically. So
Yeah.
it
Could
definitely can
be
do some stuff for you.
pretty strong.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so that's it for the deck pretty much. We have there's 37 lands in this deck. The formula recommends 34, but that gives you a little bit of room for tweaking a little bit. Maybe play it first and see if it's got too much land in it. It's That's usually where you would tweak is in there, but play it and try it out and see what you think. And that brings us to our tweaks. So our first one, we were thinking, because we've got quite a bit of card draw in here, possibly you could start running out of room in your hand, but maybe not. You've got your Thought Vessel is a really good one to say you have no maximum hand size, plus it gives you an extra colorless mana. So that might be something you might want to add to this deck that's pretty inexpensive.
Yep. We also looked at other morph and megamorph stuff that's out there to just kind of see if there's anything that we could add. We did find a few. So Unstable Hulk for 3, it's a 2/2. It does have a morph cost of 5. And when it's turned face up, it gets +6/+6 and gains trample until the end of turn. You do have to skip your next turn, but it's one of those ones that you can use as a trick. They've blocked this little 2/2. They know that you have tricks when you're going to turn things face up. So, well, if they've played before, they know. But they might not know that +6/+6 is your trick. And so hopefully you can use that to remove some of their cards if you decide to put that one in.
Mm-hmm. Aurelia's Vindicator. This one is a new card that's coming out that we thought is a must include almost in this deck. So it's a 4/2 for 4, but it has Flying, Lifelink, and Ward 2. But its disguise cost is X and 4. So paying that extra to disguise it instead, when it is turned face up, you exile up to X other target creatures from the battlefield and or creature cards from graveyards. And when it leaves the battlefield, you return those cards to their owner's hand. So it just, she'll be able to remove some stuff for you, and hopefully you're going to get in and keep her pretty safe. She does have Ward 2, so that it's harder to remove her. So as long as she stays out there, they don't have those big cards that you've exiled. So that's really nice.
Yeah. And then Hide in Plain Sight, we thought would be a good one. It's a sorcery for 4, but you get to look at the top 5 cards of your library and cloak them, and put the rest on the bottom of your library. So just a reminder, cloak, they can only be turned up if they're creature cards. So sometimes you have to cloak a card and it might be an instant or an enchantment or a sorcery or something like that. So you'll never be able to turn it face up. This will allow you to look at 5 cards and choose which ones you want down on the battlefield. And you're going to then choose creatures that you can turn face up and get benefits from.
Yeah. And then we were looking at cards that don't necessarily have oh no, not this one does. This one does. Sorry. Crowd Control Warden. It's for 3 and a green and a white, a 4/4. And when it enters the battlefield or is turned put face up, you put X +1 counters on it, where X is the number of other creatures you control. So you definitely want to try to disguise this one. Its disguise is pretty much the same cost, and you want to do that so that you can get all those counters on it. It's going to be a lot of counters.
And then Dog Walker, when it's turned face up, you get to create 2 1/1 white dog creature tokens. So it has a fun little benefit. It also has vigilance. So it's a pretty cheap disguise one, and it was fun. So we thought if you want, we wanted to show it to you because it's cute.
Same with the Forum Familiar. It's a pretty fun little cat. Leslie likes the cats. I like the dogs. So we had to put them in. It's 1/1. Its disguise cost is 2. But when it is turned face up, you return another target permanent you control to its owner's hand to put a counter on this guy. So that's a way you can get something back to your hand, and
which is very good, actually, and beneficial, because that there's a lot of them when you turn them face up, something happens. So maybe you've turned something face up like Aurelia's, you put Aurelia's out, and this really awesome thing happened, but now that's happened and it's done. So now you return it to your hand and you can play it for its disguise or morph or whatever again and turn it face up again, which is fantastic. Expose the Culprit is also one that we thought might be a good one for this deck. It has 2 for an instant. You get to choose one or both. And this is one that will basically protect you from targeted spells. So if someone tries to destroy your creature, targets your creature or a few of your creatures in some way, you can, first of all, if it's a face down creature, turn target face down creature face up. Then you can, because you can choose both, you can exile any number of face up creatures you control and then disguise them in a pile, shuffle them, and put them face down, and then cloak them. The point of shuffling them is so that your opponent doesn't know now which one is which if they want to retarget something. You put them face down, they are no longer the target that they originally picked. And so, therefore, their spell will just fizzle because their target is gone, and you still have it on the battlefield and can turn it face up. It's also a good way, again, to get those things that have already happened that you want to happen
Mm-hmm.
again. You just kind of pull them off, and you're like, I want all that removal again. So I'm going to pull all my removal things and then turn them face up again and make it happen. So it's a nice little card for this deck.
Yeah. Then another nice disguise card that we found is a little bit expensive, but it's going to be pretty awesome if you can do its disguise. It costs less for the disguise. It's a 6/7 for 6 as a disguise card, or 7 as regular. But it does have reach. A 6/7 with reach is going to be really helpful for you out on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. And Lens of Clarity, for one, super cheap artifact, lets you look at the top card of your library, which is always good news. And you can also look at face down cards you don't control. So if you're playing against another deck from this set, there's a lot of face down, disguisey things happening. So you can always look at those, which is great. Also, there's cards that allow you to manifest the cards from your like your other player's deck.
Yep.
Now you can look at those and see what they have, what they're going to do. So it gives you some knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And the Sumela Sentry, so it doesn't have disguise or anything itself, but it's a 1/3 with reach. And whenever a face down permanent you control is turned face up, you put a 1/1 counter on this guy and the one that you turned face up, which is potentially pretty good.
Yep. Tin Street Gossip for 4. It's a 4/4, which is great. It has Vigilance, which is also great. But you can also tap and add a red and a green to spend mana to to cast face down spells or turn creatures face up. So a little bit of ramp, as well as it's a 4/4 with Vigilance, which is great.
Oh, then we fell in love with the little tunnel tipster.
Love him.
Little mole. He's a 1/1 for 2, which seems pretty whatever. But at the beginning of your end step, if a face down creature enters the battlefield under your control this turn, you get to put a 1/1 counter on this little guy. And you can tap him and use him for mana too if you want. And then all of a sudden he's a big guy.
Yeah. Early game, he's just a little mana dork, and then he just gets bigger, and he's so cute. She, it could be a she. I could picture him as a she, so they. We'll say they. Yaris, Roar of the Old Gods, was our last tweak, and we think it's a very good one for 4. It's a 4/4. Other creatures you control have haste. Awesome. When one or more face down creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. So there's your card draw, helping with when you do combat damage. And whenever a face down creature you control dies, you return it to the battlefield face down under your control. If it's a permanent card, then turn it face up. So now it doesn't matter if your face down creatures die because they're just coming back. It's fine. And if it's a permanent, you get to turn it face up.
So now you get them
face up for free back on the battlefield. You want your face down creatures to die in this case because then you just get to return them to the battlefield face up.
Yeah. What?
We thought this was a must add. If you can find this one, it's a must add for this deck.
For sure. So good. All right. Well, that's it for our tweaks. Thanks so much for watching. Feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to hear how you would tweak this deck. If you're going to get this deck, we're trying to decide which deck we want because, it's hard. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time. And in the meantime,
tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Bye, guys.
Everyone.